Hi there. Welcome to another installment of Sunnyside Journals. 'Tis the season. As I mentioned in the very first um, episode, I guess, you're going to be seeing bits and pieces of several different Christmas journals that I'm working on for this season. I shouldn't call them Christmas journals because there's going to be some solstice journals in there, and there's just going to be what I would call a seasonal journal. Um, so, not necessarily Christmas per se, but certainly festive, if that makes sense. And the one I'm working on right now uh, is going to involve using this beautiful paper, which I love. And if you saw the first episode, you saw this and you heard me gushing about it because I love it so much, and I will be sad. I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 sheets left. There's 10 more journals, and that's it. And I've used this paper before. It's placemat paper, in case you missed that first one. These are actually paper placemats. Designed to make your table look beautiful, and then no laundry afterwards to wash. You simply throw it into your recycling blue box. But I realized that I just love this for journals. So after a couple of years of using them on my Christmas table, it didn't get packed away with my Christmas things. It got brought upstairs to my journal room. So I've used it as end papers in a few of my journals now that I've created for the holiday season. But I decided this is the year that this beautiful paper deserves to actually be the cover. So I did get started a little bit, but we will be doing some work today on it. So I wanted to show you what I've done. And I wanted to show you what you can do with paper that looks fairly new. This is beautiful, but it really does look very new. It's bright white, which is nice. I love a beautiful crisp snow white for Christmassy things, but I really enjoy an old looking journal. And so I got started on it, and um, and I've got the cover, front and back cover ready. And here's what it looks like now. I did this. See where? Oh, hold on. There we go. There. Oh, sorry. I'm hitting my own little tin of goodies. So there is the area that I have doctored to look older. And I'll tell you how I did it. So in case it's something you want to do. This is just pressed board. You can get it at hardware stores, lumber stores. My son-in-law saws them up into the sizes I want. I like this size. I also have some little ones. When I made Ren, I used little ones. And when I cover these, I like the paper to be as smooth as possible. And I worried that if I tea-dyed this paper, you just never, you cannot get it perfectly flat again once you tea dye paper. So I had to make this look older in different ways. So I thought I would explain to you how I made it look older, just so that you could, if you want, do likewise. So I have this little piece of leftover offcut from when I cut the sheet up. And I'm going to show you what I did because I don't want you to be afraid to try it. And if I just tell you what I'm doing, you might think, oh, Catherine, I've got a beautiful piece of paper. Maybe you've only got one sheet. You don't want to ruin it. And what I'm proposing to you might sound a little scary. So I'm just going to put this under here. So I wanted this to be, of course, quite yellowed, and I wanted my edges quite browned. And as you can see, this actually is the piece from, from right there. You can see the little stamp It was right there. So what I did was I worked with Antique Linen, Distress ink, and I worked with my beloved Gathered Twigs. You can't really see that very well, but it's Gathered Twigs. So I tried at first with the Antique Linen. I tried to simply use my makeup brush and see if I could get it yellow. And it was subtle, but it wasn't the old golden bang that I wanted. And so then I tried a makeup brush or makeup sponge. That wasn't doing it. So then I finally said, all right, this paper needs me to go in with the hard stuff. And so keep in mind, I tried the gentlest version, I tried a little bit stronger version, and then I decided time to go in and just do this. And I feel like you can do that with Antique Linen because it is so very pale. It's a very, very pale yellow. And I simply turned it right over the whole pad. I held it in my hand, turned it over, and I used it like I was painting. And I just went over it. And made it yellow. So very different now. And I did a tiny little detail that maybe people wouldn't notice, but I notice it and it makes me happy, is I carefully went around the edge of this little J. I think this is a Canada J. I could be wrong. It might be a gray J. There's, in case you didn't know, there's all kinds of Jays, not just blue jays. I used to think there was only blue jays. There's all kinds of Jays. But I think that is either a Canada Jay or a gray jay. Anyhow, I wanted him to still be a little bit lighter than the rest of this. So I carefully, using this block, I went around the edge of him. And then I've mentioned before, for some reason with the Antique Linen, I've never noticed it with any of the other shades. And I've got quite a few here. I also like Vintage Photo. I also like Walnut Stain. But I find that with the Antique Linen, it has almost a bit of an oily film to it at first. So what I did was, once I had done my flip it over and wipe it down, I got a paper towel and I just sort of gave it a rub like this. And what that did was, you can see here, even with that little bit, I got a little bit of it off, and that prevents it coming off somewhere where you don't want it to. And I was able to just simply use my finger, and I went around that little bird so he's a little bit lighter than the rest of this surrounding area. But I didn't want him stark white. He does have a little bit on him that I just manually did this to. This has all been sealed, so I can. This has had a sealing of liquid Mod Podge, and then it's also had a spray sealing of aerosol sealant. So this is good to go. It doesn't have that. You know how liquid Mod Podge can still feel tacky because it's hydroponic, hygromorphic. It even after it's dry, it will continue to absorb moisture out of the air. Some glues do that, and Mod Podge is one of them. And that's why if you live in a humid area of the world, it will always feel a little bit tacky even though it's dry, because it's pulling moisture out of the air. Not unlike when you get those silica gels inside new pair of shoes or inside something. Those things are hygro something or other. Anyhow, that's what Mod Podge is. So I went over the whole thing with my, pretend that's the actual pad, over the whole thing, over the edges, and then I even did these edges because a little bit of that is going to show after I put my end papers down. So I did that, and then out came the, oh, wrong one. That's my linen. Whew. Out came the gathered twigs, and I went around the edge. Imagine that that's the book. So I went around the edge. I went along this part, and then I also inked along there, and I was quite vigorous. I really like almost a halo of the darker shade and then the lighter area in the center when I'm doing something that I want quite dramatic, like this cover. So I'm really happy with how these turned out. They're good to go. They came out nice and smooth because I didn't tea dye them. I was able to get that smooth finish using inks. And when I used the liquid Mod Podge, I went down the center first because Mod Podge will wake up your ink. And I wanted this to be light. And if I simply started paint, the dark gathered twigs would just start coloring in this area that I wanted light. So I Mod Podged it first, and then I didn't go back over it. I Mod Podged this side, I Mod Podged this side. That way, if there was gathered twigs that was tinting my Mod Podge from out of my brush, because I woke it up, right? I didn't go back over this again, or it would have come out this deeper shades of brown that you see around the edge. So I did that with both of them. I left the center, I Mod Podged it first and just did the sides and didn't go back. It's very tempting when you're doing the liquid Mod Podge sealant. It's very tempting to just keep, oh, that one's not smooth. Oh, that one's not smooth. It's so tempting to just aim for perfection. And you know what? You've got to just look at it, hold it up so that you can see what's shiny, what's wet, so that you haven't missed a spot, but then put it down and walk away. Just walk away. Because it's so tempting to just keep dabbing and brushing, and you could dab and brush forever with Mod Podge, and then before you know it, it starts drying, and then you'll make a mess when it starts getting too tacky and it's not smooth anymore. So do your Mod Podge and then walk away. So today we're going to actually work on the spine. I've got most of it ready. I used my usual method of file folder cardstock and wrapping it around I have a rolling pin that I've taken the handles off of. Now I took this opportunity to use a glue that I had not used before, but I suspected was good. For a while, and it's certainly not right now, my local Dollar Tree was carrying this Beacon foam and poster board adhesive. And it certainly, it says that it's acetone based, which I like. It seemed to be like Fabri-Tac and 3-in-1, but it smells a little different. I can't tell the difference between 3-in-1 and Fabri-Tac, but this one has a different smell. So I've been hesitant to try it on a journal that I really, really want to turn out good. And I thought this is the perfect time to try it, making one of these spines, because if it can hold one of these spines and hold its form, I would say it's good to go. Thank goodness I got a lot of them, because I've never seen it since at my Dollar Tree. That was a few months ago. And I think I bought like 10 bottles, and I wish I'd got more now. Anyhow, I got a few. So I made this. If you've watched in the past, hunt for it, because it's very simple. You just make your spine and then start gluing them together until you get it to the desired thickness. I always worry that I'm going to have a senior's moment, which I'm doing more and more of. So I was worried that I wouldn't remember how many layers I did. because if I've got time this season, I would like to make another one, I think. So I wrote on it 5 layers. So this is 5 layers of file folder cardstock. And I'm quite happy with that. And you can see this is tough as nails. That spine is not going anywhere. I'm completely impressed. I'm going to move this out of the way. So what I want to do now is I want to put bands on this. I really want this to be a beautiful, almost a small-ish tome. Usually a tome, they got a big wide spine. This is 2 inches. Probably will work out to just under 2.25 inches when it's done, because there will be gutters on the side when it gets put together. So we're going to do some bands today on this little guy. I think I will leave this under here. So I've already cut the jute. This is just jute from the dollar store. I think the dollar store. I got mine at the thrift store, but certainly if I ran out of jute and I needed jute, the first place I would run to is either Dollarama or Dollar Tree. And I looked over, I did a lot of Pinteresting to see about bands. Oh, good, I am in. There we go. To see about bands on spines and where they're located. And they seem to be all over the place. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And I've done 2 banded spines before, so I'm not a pro. Please don't look to me. I'm still doing the by guess and by golly method here. But I did do one spine where I think both spines had bands right at the very end, and then one in the middle, and then I think I did one with 5 bands. But I saw some interesting ones on Pinterest when I was looking at some genuine banded spines, raised bands. And one in particular that I liked was on some old French books. And they had 5 bands, and they were sort of in the center. And I think that's what I want to do this time, just for a change. So I've already drawn on the lines here and made sure that they're centered. And I'm going to put bands on those. I want them quite gnarly. I really want this to be a rustic looking book. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm just using PVA, just neutral pH PVA. I suppose I could get this, at an art supply store, Michael's. PVA is pretty common, kind of crafters and artists glue. But when I bought this, it was back during one of the many lockdowns we lived through. So I got this one on Amazon. So in case you were looking for it, perhaps you'll still be able to get it on Amazon. So I'm just putting on a little line of PVA. And I wish I could remember who taught this method. I did not think of this, but I do like the results. This is what I've used both other times that I've done this. And then you take jute, lay one down, get the other, and lay it down beside it. So you want 2 right beside each other, like that. And it's one of those things where you almost have to hold it there for a little while to get the jute to remember that, oh yeah, she wants me to stay here. So I just pinch them together and play with it like that. I left them extra long. They're going to be trimmed off. So then I'm going to take my PVA again, and I'm going to run a little bit right down that little crevice, the little crack in between the two other pieces of jute. And I'm going to put one on the top. So you've used 3. And again, if you know who it is that taught this, I wish I could remember. It wouldn't be too hard to find. There hasn't been a lot of junk journalers that talk about how they do their banded spines. I wish there was more. It's one of those things. Why do I pick these things that there doesn't seem to be much information out there? It's just like the gilding wax. Not a lot of journalers working with gilding wax. Anyhow, I'll probably be able to find the artist, the crafter who came up with using 3 pieces, but it makes for a really nice profile. Just mash it together while that PVA is wet, and you're good to go. And then I'm just going to trim this and keep on going. For now, I'm just going to trim it here. Oh, you're tough, aren't you? Just to get it out of the way. Once it's fully dry, I'll take my X-Acto blade and trim that even closer. I just don't want it in the way while I try and lay it down flat again. So let's do the next one. I'm not sure how much time I've got left. I got a few minutes. We can keep going for now. So again, PVA along the line that I've drawn. I'm not sure the camera can pick up that line. It's not so dark. I should have made it darker, but trust me, these are all, because of the length of the spine and the width of the spine, I opted to have these 1.25 inches apart. So I just simply put one at the very center, and then I and then I moved out away from there 1.25 inches at a time. So I'm just pinching them. Like this. Come on, you stay down there. There we go. And we'll do it again. Third one, lay it on top. And just sort of mash it in. Pinch it together. Now this is going to, you might think, oh, Catherine, that's really going to look ugly. It will be covered with cloth. And there isn't a video in my library where I'm very nervously covering it, covering a banded spine with cloth. It's like, I wish there was an easier way, and there probably is, but nobody's walked us through it. So again, I'm doing my by guess and by golly method, but it worked. I should trim those other ones off. I think I'm going to cover them with, I painted some cloth, a dark chestnut brown. I looked over all my Christmas fabric, and it's all patterns, and it was really distracting. I want this to be the focal point, and a patterned fabric was just too busy. And then I thought, well, what about red? And then I thought, what about green? But I really kept coming back to the browns because I want to be able to use some gold gilding wax on it. And I think the brown will really look beautiful with gold gilding wax on these bands. So that's my plan. Who knows? So I'm just trimming these just a bit for now to get them out of my way. They will get trimmed up closer later when it's fully dry, when I know that it's been able to sit for an hour or so. I want this to be rock solid. Very excited for this journal. I think it's going to have more of a natural slant to it, like a solstice-y kind of feel. So it's going to be more like a winter solstice, winter kind of journal that could certainly be Christmased up, you know, if you wanted more of a Christian slant to your journal, or it could be just used for wintertime. I don't see why it couldn't. Or it could be used for any of the other, I think, any other reasons we celebrate at this time of year. Or it could just be because you think it's pretty. That would be me. I've looked and looked to see if I can find this again, these placemats, and I've never found them again. I got them initially at this funny little gourmet shop that's north of Port Hope, Ontario. It's this little place called Herma's. And it's like a gift shop, but they also make food there. They have cooking classes. They sell interesting things. Oh, there we go. It's a quirky little elegant shop. And I found them there one year. There. How am I for time? 28. We can do this last one. Right? We can do it. We can do it. One. Two. Pinch it together. Remind it to glue down. Come on, you. Stay put. And one more. And then that can just dry, and the next time we get together, I will probably actually be covering this with adding the front and back cover together and covering it, which is the tricky part. But it's one of those things, it's so satisfying if you get it done and it works. You just feel triumphant afterwards. I just feel like, yeah, I won. There. So those are going to be our bands. And think about it, they're quite thick, which is what I want. I wanted them to, wow, that's already almost dry. I want it to be quite noticeable. And then maybe I want to do a stencil in between. I'm not sure yet, or maybe the title of the book. We'll see. Thanks for joining me today. Who knows what stage this will be at, but I will definitely do an update on it at some point. But as ever, you're going to see other Christmas journals coming and going during this tis the season time of the year. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.